We are now talking about the Zachary Horton Foundation, and Jim Horton, Zach's dad, is with us today. Hello there. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for the invitation.
So let's start off with what the Zach Horton Foundation is.
Okay, boy, quickly let me step back about a year and a half. It was last January 7th, a year ago, that my son passed away from an opioid overdose. And it was very briefly after that, my wife and I started discussing, what our next steps were. And that's a challenging thing because we were older parents. We had just paid off our house. And as a parent, everything you do is for your child. And Zach was, we had hoped was getting ready to go to college. And so, we have all these dreams about, helping him start a business. And then there's grandkids and it's their education. And so these were things we were saving for. Well, now we have nothing. We have no more heirs. We have no other, close family. And our only child is gone. So we decided that we wanted to create a foundation that in its smallest reach would be to help other kids like our son. And maybe in the largest reach, our mission has been defined as to eliminate the stigma of addiction. So those are kind of the directions that we're going with it. And gosh, since then, in that year and a half, we've even defined that more and more. And I think for us the biggest challenge that we had initially was even knowing that there was a problem. So when I say eliminate the stigma of addiction, because of that stigma, we didn't reach out to anybody until it was too late. We just didn't know. We kept making excuses. We were in denial because it was something you don't talk about to your next door neighbor or to your friend. You don't want to be thought of as a bad parent. You don't want to be thought of as, you don't want anyone thinking ill of your child. So,
tell me about Zach.
Oh my gosh, he was, and again, this is the irony at his celebration of life. Gosh, there were over 400 people that showed up. It was, I thought there might be 100 people. It was just incredible. And just about everybody that was there said the same thing. Jim, I had no idea, because he was the kind of kid. We did Cub Scouts together for 4 years. He was in the scouting program, and then we did karate together for 3 years. He's the kind of kid. I told this little story one time. We were in a Home Depot parking lot, and there was a gentleman there, and he had sleeve tats that went all the way down below his jacket sleeves, and but his shirt was buttoned up real nice, and he stopped us in the parking lot and he said, excuse me, if you could help me out with a little money, I've got my family here. I'm supposed to go to a job interview. I can't even get there, whatever. Well, my son and I had just been out. He was about 12. We had just been out and cashed in a bunch of aluminum cans, right? So I'm trying to teach him, how to be responsible. Sure. And so we cashed out some cans, and he had like $22. We were going to head down to the video store. He wanted to get a new video game. So teach a little responsibility. Hey, you can earn it. We can go down and get a game. So we were talking to this guy, and I said, Zach, how about if we give him a couple bucks? And so I go to my car, and I'm going to give him a couple dollars. And he says to me, Daddy, I think I want to give him my 20. I think he needs it more than I do. When things like that would happen, brother, it is so great to see that your child has that kind of compassion. So that's the kind of kid Zach was. And he was that way even through his addiction. Now, not to parents, any family that's struggling with it, let me tell you, boy, when they're in the middle of their addiction, they're not them anymore. It's it's often said, that's the addict that's talking. and it's a blow up. There's nothing that as a parent that you can do. Why are you treating me like this? You hate me. Why are you, because they don't see anything at that point. They're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
The pain that they're feeling or whatever, and they're using. But stories that so for the 9 months that he was in treatment before he passed, he hardly spoke to me at all.
Interesting.
We yelled a couple times. The last month, things were starting to turn around in a big way. But, man, I heard some great stories from friends of his that he had developed in the program, his roommates, his psychiatrist that he would go and visit. You would tell me, Jim, when Zach walks in the room, everybody here just lights up.
Huh.
He was that kind of kid.
He was a cool kid.
He was talking people out of leaving the program and relapsing the week before he died. So his heart was definitely in the right place. I just believe, I mean the disease of addiction is so overwhelming, and the demons that he was battling personally were just too strong at that moment, to overcome.
But you're taking something so awful, so just unthinkable, and now I know that he is looking down, happy as a clam, that you're able to do this for not only him, but every other girl, boy, man, woman struggling with addiction. We had talked yesterday over the phone, and I was telling you how I was watching nightly news the other day, and, just in the last 12 months here in America, we've seen 100,000 overdose deaths due to drugs and or alcohol.
It's unbelievable.
100,000. So I think we do have to break the stigma and support any addict who is in need. And they're not a bad person. It is a disease. It is a disease of addiction. And the only way we can get those deaths down is by helping these wonderful people. They're wonderful people.
I can't tell you how many, anytime anyone hears my story, of all those people that showed up at Zach's celebration of life, we would begin to talk to him and they'd say, well, I have a nephew that struggled with this. Gosh, we have a cousin that had this problem. Uncle Tom, was an alcoholic for years, so I know what, I know what you're experiencing. But the challenge is all those people that had those stories to talk to us about, I had never heard any of them before. Right? Because again, this is something that we don't share, that we don't talk about. And what it did in our lives, what it does us is it keeps us from getting help to the one who's injured, to the one who's sick, to the one that needs help, and until that disease is so overwhelming that it's just been a miracle if they're able to find their way out.
So a year and a half later now, what are some of the other things that the foundation is doing? What are your primary purposes now?
Sure. So along with eliminating the stigma, right? Well, one of the big problems that my wife and I saw when Zach had passed out at school and some friends brought him home, like they got him out of the classroom, no one, the teachers didn't know, right? They got him home. I came home that day and finally the blinders are ripped away from my eyes. It's like, man, this problem is it's so much bigger than I thought it was. I went online, this was 3 years ago, couldn't find a single local rehabilitation
here in the
place
Central Valley
online. So, and again, when you're in the middle of of that roller coaster and of that tragedy and the drama, you're not thinking straight. So I didn't spend 3 hours trying to dissect down through different things. I'm just frantic, right? I'm trying to put in keywords. Nothing happened. Now, since then, there's been some more money. There's at least 2 or 3 private places that I'm aware of now, and then a lot of also public places. So one of the things, if you go to our website, there's a resource page.
Wow.
So families can come on, they click one button, and every resource that I've been able to find in the Fresno area is there. And it also lists a contact person. It lists if they accept insurance or not. It lists if the care is free or not. Because again, when you're in the middle of the tragedy, you don't need to get an appointment 5 days from now to go in and just find out that you don't have insurance and they're not going to help you, right? You need to find that now. So that was one of the things that we wanted to accomplish. It's
incredible.
I think another big thing, we talk about eliminating the stigma just about how everyone thinks about addiction. I also believe that there's probably a great stigma that's developed for the person when they're in their addiction. And I've seen these young people, that were rooming with Zach in the sober living homes. Oftentimes, by the time they get there, they've destroyed every relationship they have. There's no longer parents or friends that they can call that they still may love and care about them. They've just been burned so many times. They're going to say, hey, you need to show me something for a long time before you get. And sometimes it's not even there because those bridges have been burned. So I also want to help eliminate the stigma of addiction to those that struggle with the disease. I want them to see themselves as they're not damaged people. They're people with an illness. Right? I wouldn't treat anyone poorly that had cancer or that had diabetes, right? And so, but somehow these kids, by the time they get sober, and sometimes the worst time is as they begin to get sober, and if they're working a program, now they have to face all the damage that they've created. There may be jail time. There may be some things that they had to straighten out with the law. They have to apologize to everyone that they've known because they've done everyone. And all of a sudden, the shame and the guilt, I think, that goes along with that must be overwhelming, especially for a young man or a young woman who isn't even fully developed because they've been using for 6 or 7 years through their teens. They don't even know how to communicate that. So one of the things that we do, we send, we started back in December, to every sober living that we're aware of in Fresno. There's 15 that we have on our list. Okay. Every month we put together a care package for everyone in the home. And again, we just I tell them that you are my son and I love you and you're loved. And I want them to so much I want them to get that message. I think that we have we've done a huge disservice by criminalizing every sick person that has had this disease, and they begin to believe it after a while, and they need to start to believe that they are loved. They were created the way that they're supposed to be, and it's our job to help them to get back,
not to disown them. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I come from a family of addiction and mental illness. I've struggled myself. And so I cannot thank you enough for what you are doing for me, for anybody out there that's struggling with this. Because it's not easy. And I mean, what you're doing is amazing, and in Zach's honor.
Yes.
Because
thank
you. He's moved on to heaven, but at least out of something terrible has come something good.
Yeah.
I know you guys did a golf tournament in Bakersfield. Was that a few days ago?
It was a couple of days ago. It was for the Miracle Children's Network, and I just happened to be. I bought a sponsorship, and a buddy of mine from college back like centuries ago, right? He organized it and put it together. He said, "Hey, Jim, come on down and hey, we'll give you a booth and you can tell people about it." So it was great. I got to talk to 170 business leaders in Bakersfield. So the next thing is there's a page on the website for treatment facilities in our area. This is something that's fantastic. Now that I have contacts in Bakersfield, I will put together something for the Bakersfield community.
Great.
And so then, and hopefully have an opportunity to share things like this there as well, and then get people to again utilize that and to reach out.
So and then you talk to a lot of schools. You do a lot of outreach as well, right?
I've had an opportunity to speak to a class at Fresno State.
Nice.
Of course, the pandemic last year shut down everything that Zach graduated from Clovis North. So I'm looking forward to an opportunity to get back and talk to the folks there. And I know that Zach's name has been used. There's been some other people that have been able to speak last year before the pandemic hit. Back in the early days, just shortly after his death. But so I'm hoping that will become part of our process. And if I can use the word ministry, just to reach out to, and I want to get. I've got some people that have offered some opportunities to speak to some churches.
Okay.
Because this message, Austin, just isn't for people struggling with addiction. This is the message that people need to hear before they struggle.
Exactly.
Because that's when they're not.
Yeah.
I was thinking the other day, Zach was real fair-skinned. Mm-hmm. From the time he was 5 years old, he'd go out in the sun, we'd put sunscreen on and we'd lather him all up.
Burn.
Right? We spray him down. He never swam. They didn't have a swim shirt on, right? Because son, you're going to get him killed. Because when I was growing up, there was olive oil or nothing, right? You just went out and burned. So by the time he was a teenager, I didn't have to tell him. He'd get ready to go out and play. He'd spray himself down or whatever. What if we started talking to our kids at 4 and 5 about not how bad you are if you happen to use a drug? Because all kids are going to try. It's part of that experimentation, right?
Sure.
Well, what if we just started talking to them about the dangers and how much it could hurt,
right?
How much it hurt Uncle Bob, or how much you know how Uncle Harry kind of acts. Oh well, that's because he has a problem with alcohol, and so Mom and Daddy have a glass of wine at night, but we don't act like that, right? And so this is something you need to be careful of, and especially if you have there's family history that can cause a problem.
Exactly.
ADD can cause a problem.
Sure.
Other types of depression or mental illness, those just add up, right? And they add.
Right.
Make that part of the discussion.
I agree.
When they're 4 or 5 years old, when they just accept it. Right. Let's have that be part of a dinner conversation, and then go on. It's just part of life because it is going to affect your life at some point. I don't know. Again, now. I know hardly no one that hasn't been touched by this. If it's not in their specific family, it's in a company that they run.
Sure.
And there's people, missing work because of drug and alcohol abuse, right? I mean, it sort of affects the bottom line of our nation. So let's just open up. Let's just open up the dialogue.
I agree.
Let's just start talking about it.
People can find you at ZacharyHortonFoundation.org.
Yes, sir.
And as things are opening up, are you willing to do some speaking engagements?
Oh, absolutely. And I got to say too, my wife and I are always available just to chat with people. If you have any tragedies like that, we're there. It can put you in touch. But
perfect.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Austin.
Pleasure to meet you. Come back anytime. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. I'm Austin Reed. You're watching Central Valley Talk. That wraps it up for us on this Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back next week. Don't forget, the Reed Report is tomorrow at 8 a.m. on My 53, also streaming anytime on the Austin Reed Network on Roku. Stay cool this weekend, or should I say stay warm. It's going to be much cooler. Highs will be in the 70s and 80s. Can't complain. Have a great weekend. See you next week, friends.